The stars burned with the fire of war across the galaxy in the year 2387. Three great alien powers fought each other with weapons that could destroy entire worlds. The Zephyrian Empire sent their insect warriors in black ships that moved like deadly swarms through space. The Kryn Federation answered with blue vessels filled with aquatic soldiers who breathed water instead of air. Between them crawled the Valdori hegemony with their reptilian crews, who cared only for profit and slaves. Earth watched from the sidelines. President Katie Morrison sat in her office, looking at reports of the latest battles. Millions died every day in the fighting, but Earth stayed neutral. The planet had joined the galactic community 200 years ago, but never took sides in alien wars. General Frank Davis knocked on her door with more bad news. Another star system had fallen to the Zephyrians. Admiral Lisa Carter entered behind, him carrying data tablets about refugee ships heading toward Earth space. The three leaders talked about the growing crisis. Earth provided medical help and food to refugees but would not send soldiers. This policy had kept humanity safe for decades. The aliens could destroy each other while Earth grew stronger through trade and science. Morrison believed this was the right choice, even as her advisors showed her images of burning worlds. Captain Jake Sullivan commanded the research ship UNS Discovery far from Earth. His crew explored new star systems and studied strange phenomena in deep space. Dr. Amy Brooks served as his science officer while engineer Tony Martinez kept their ship running. They had been mapping an empty region when the battle started. Hundreds of ships appeared on their sensors. Zephyrian fighters with razor wings attacked Kryn cruisers that looked like giant sea creatures. Energy beams cut through the darkness as ships exploded in brilliant flashes. Sullivan ordered his crew to stay hidden behind an asteroid while they watched the slaughter. The battle lasted 6 hours and left thousands of bodies floating in space. Brooks studied the wreckage through her instruments. The destruction sickened her. These were thinking beings with families and dreams, just like humans. Martinez worked to keep their ship quiet so the surviving warships would not notice them. Both alien fleets limped away from the battlefield, leaving only debris and the dead. When Discovery returned to Earth, Sullivan reported what he had seen to his superiors. The war was getting worse and moving closer to human space. Admiral Carter listened to his briefing with a grim expression. She had seen similar reports from other captains. The fighting was spreading and Earth might not be able to stay neutral much longer. Dr. Helen Parker worked in the largest laboratory on Earth studying alien biology. She had samples from dozens of species and knew more about galactic life than almost any human. Her research showed that the war was destroying entire ecosystems. Planets that had taken millions of years to develop were being turned into wastelands in days. Species were going extinct faster than she could catalog them. Parker tried to convince the Global Assembly to do more than just send medical supplies. She showed them images of dead worlds and empty star systems. The representatives listened politely, but voted to maintain neutrality. Earth would help refugees and treat the wounded, but would not fight. Journalist Ryan Cooper wrote angry articles about Earth's policy. He argued that humanity had a duty to stop the killing. Humanitarian leader Grace Williams organized protests outside government buildings. Thousands of people marched demanding action, but the government would not change its mind. Morrison appeared on television to explain that Earth's first duty was to its own people. Getting involved in alien wars would only bring death to human worlds. The Zephyrians had evolved from hive insects and thought like a swarm. Individual soldiers mattered less than the success of the whole empire. They used suicide attacks and poisonous weapons that made other species fear them. Their ships were fast and deadly, but lightly armored. The Kryn came from ocean worlds and fought in groups like schools of fish. Their technology was more advanced than the Zephyrians, but they moved slowly and carefully. They preferred to win through superior firepower rather than clever tactics. Their heavy ships could take enormous damage, but had trouble catching faster enemies. The Valdori cared only about profit. They sold weapons to both sides while capturing prisoners to work as slaves in their mines. Their leaders were old and cunning reptiles who had been playing political games for centuries. They had the most money, but the smallest fleets, because they hired mercenaries instead of building their own armies. Earth's spy networks brought disturbing news to Admiral Carter's office. The three alien powers were developing new weapons in secret. Some reports mentioned planet-killing devices, and others described biological weapons that could wipe out entire species. The war was escalating beyond anything the galaxy had seen before. Strange signals began appearing on Earth's long-range sensors. The transmissions came from the empty space between galaxies where no known civilizations existed. The messages were in no recognizable language and used technology that Earth's best scientists could not understand. Morrison ordered the signals to be studied in secret. Something was stirring in the darkness, and it might be worse than the war already tearing the galaxy apart. 3 months passed since the first strange signals reached Earth. The transmissions grew stronger each day and seemed to be moving closer to inhabited space. Admiral Carter sent reconnaissance teams to investigate the source. Commander Ben Taylor led a small fleet of scout ships into the dark regions where the signals originated. Lieutenant Susan Kim served as his intelligence officer and communication specialist. What they found changed everything. Massive shapes moved through the void between stars. The objects were larger than any ships ever built and made of metal that reflected no light. They traveled in perfect formations like a mechanical army marching through space. When Taylor's ships tried to scan them, the machines turned toward the human vessels with movements too precise to be natural. The scout fleet retreated immediately and sent urgent messages to Earth. These were not ships built by any known species. The technology was completely alien and far more advanced than anything in the galaxy. The machines seemed to be heading toward the war zone, where the three alien powers continued their endless fighting. Dr. Brooks analyzed the data from Taylor's mission. The mechanical objects used energy signatures unlike any known technology. Their hulls appeared to be self-repairing, and their power sources generated more energy than entire star systems. She compared the readings to ancient records, found in alien ruins, and made a terrifying discovery. The machines matched descriptions of something called the Devourers. These were mechanical beings from legends told by the oldest galactic civilizations. According to the stories, they had appeared once before millions of years ago and consumed entire regions of space before mysteriously vanishing. Most scientists believed they were myths created to explain ancient disasters. The first attack came without warning. A Kryn mining colony called Theta 7 simply stopped transmitting. When rescue ships arrived, they found empty space where a thriving world had existed. The planet was gone along with its 3 moons and the orbital stations that had surrounded it. Only a few escape pods drifted in the debris field. The survivors told impossible stories. They described machines the size of asteroids that had appeared around their world. The devices had projected energy beams that stripped away the planets, surface layer by layer. Within hours, everything was gone. The rock and metal had been consumed and processed into new machines that joined the growing fleet. 3 more star systems fell in the following weeks. Each attack followed the same pattern. The machines would surround a world and systematically harvest every atom of matter. They showed no interest in negotiation or surrender. They simply took what they needed and moved on to the next target. Panic spread through the alien civilizations. The Zephyrians recalled their fleets from the front lines to defend their core worlds. The Kryn began evacuating their outer colonies. Even the Valdori stopped their profitable arms dealing and focused on protecting their mining operations. The galaxy had faced many threats before, but nothing like this. Dr. Brooks worked with Earth's best scientists to understand the Devourer technology. Professor Dan Walsh studied their energy patterns, while Dr. Helen Parker analyzed biological samples from the consumed worlds. They discovered that the machines were not just randomly destroying planets. They were specifically targeting worlds with high technology and large populations. Earth's powerful fusion reactors and quantum computers made it an obvious target. The planet's advanced industry and billions of inhabitants represented exactly the kind of resources the Devourers seemed to want. Morrison called emergency meetings with her advisors to discuss Earth's options. General Davis wanted to begin immediate military preparations. He proposed building new defense stations around Earth and developing weapons that might damage the mechanical invaders. Admiral Carter argued that Earth's best hope lay in working with the alien powers to form a united defense. The three species had been fighting each other, but they would need to cooperate to survive. The alien leaders attempted to create an alliance against the Devourers. Zephyrian General Vextar met with Kryn Admiral Thisica on a neutral space station. Valdori Chancellor Grimtalk attended the meeting through holographic projection from his heavily defended fortress world. The talks immediately broke down into old arguments and accusations. Decades of warfare had created too much hatred between the species. The Zephyrians blamed the Kryn for starting the war with surprise attacks on their border colonies. The Kryn accused the Zephyrians of using biological weapons against civilian populations. Both sides hated the Valdori for prolonging the conflict by selling weapons to their enemies. Meanwhile, Earth's government faced increasing pressure from its own people. College student Mary Johnson organized demonstrations at universities across the planet. Veteran activist Carl Brown led marches demanding that humanity help defend innocent worlds from the mechanical threat. The protesters argued that Earth could not remain neutral when all life in the galaxy was at risk. Morrison tried to maintain her policy of non-interference, but the situation was changing rapidly. Intelligence reports showed the Devourers adapting their tactics with each attack. They were learning from every encounter and becoming more efficient at harvesting worlds. The machines that had taken days to consume the first planet could now strip a world bare in hours. Dr. Brooks made another disturbing discovery while studying the attack patterns. The Devourers were not operating randomly. They followed a specific strategy that targeted the most advanced civilizations first. This would eliminate potential threats while gathering the resources needed for further expansion. Earth's advanced technology made it a priority target. The mechanical fleet grew larger with each conquered world. Every planet they consumed provided materials for building more ships and harvesting machines. The Devourers were like a disease, spreading through the galaxy and growing stronger with each system they infected. Unless someone found a way to stop them, they would eventually consume everything. The Devourer advance accelerated as their numbers multiplied with terrifying speed. Each conquered world provided materials to build dozens of new harvesting machines. Star systems that had existed for billions of years vanished in mere days. The mechanical swarm showed no mercy and took no prisoners. Captain Sullivan received new orders from Earth Command. The UNS Discovery was reassigned from exploration to evacuation duties. His crew would help transport refugees from threatened worlds to safer regions of space. It was dangerous work that required flying close to Devourer-controlled territory. Their first rescue mission took them to a Valdori research station in the Outer Rim. The reptilian scientists had been studying ancient artifacts when the mechanical fleet appeared in their system. Dr. Kethmos was the senior researcher and one of the galaxy's leading experts on prehistoric civilizations. She had discovered something important in the old records. Sullivan's ship arrived just as the research station's defenses were failing. Devourer scouts had found the facility and were preparing to harvest it. The Discovery used its speed to evacuate. The scientists, while Valdori defense ships tried to hold off the attackers. 73 researchers escaped, but the station and all its data were lost. Dr. Kethmos brought disturbing news to Earth. Her research had uncovered references to the Devourers in texts that were millions of years old. the machines had appeared, during the early days of galactic civilization. They had consumed entire regions of space before being stopped by a coalition of organic species working together. The ancient records were incomplete, but they suggested that the Devourers had a weakness. Something had caused them to retreat into the void between galaxies, where they had remained dormant until now. The knowledge of how to defeat them had been lost when their victim civilizations collapsed from the damage of the war. Earth's scientists worked frantically to develop new weapons and defenses. Dr. Parker led a team studying Devourer technology recovered from battle sites. Professor Walsh designed improved shield systems that might protect Earth's cities from harvesting beams. Dr. Brooks created new energy weapons based on quantum physics principles. Computer simulations showed the grim reality of Earth's situation. Even with the most advanced defenses, the planet could not survive a direct assault by the main Devourer fleet. The machines had too many ships and too much firepower. Earth's only hope was to find the weakness mentioned in the ancient texts. The Alien Alliance attempt collapsed completely at the Battle of Nexus Prime. The three species had gathered their remaining fleets for a joint attack on a Devourer staging area. The plan required perfect coordination between forces that had been killing each other for decades. It was doomed from the start. Zephyrian fighters attacked first, but arrived early when Kryn heavy cruisers were still moving into position. The insect warriors were slaughtered by Devourer defense systems, while their allies watched helplessly. When the Kryn ships finally engaged, half their ammunition exploded inside their own weapons due to sabotaged supplies provided by Valdori merchants. The disaster cost the aliens their most experienced commanders and their few remaining capital ships. General Vextar died when his flagship was torn apart by malfunctioning weapons. Admiral Thesica barely escaped in a damaged cruiser. Chancellor Grimtalk denied any responsibility for the sabotage, but everyone knew his people had sold defective ammunition to both sides. The failed battle left the galaxy's defenders in chaos. What remained of the alien fleets retreated to their home systems to make final stands. The Zephyrians prepared for ground combat on their hive worlds. The Kryn began evacuating their ocean planets. The Valdori hired every mercenary they could find to protect their mining operations. Devourer scouts began probing the edges of human space. Their mechanical ships appeared near Earth's outer colonies and scanned the defensive installations. They made no attacks, but their presence sent clear messages. The machines were studying human technology and preparing for their next harvest. Earth's government finally began to crack under the pressure. General Davis presented emergency defense plans to the Global Assembly. The military wanted to evacuate Earth's population to hidden colonies in distant star systems. Admiral Carter argued that running would only delay the inevitable. The Devourers would eventually find and consume every human world. The debate raged for weeks while the mechanical threat grew closer. Some representatives wanted to surrender and hoped the machines would show mercy. Others demanded immediate military action, even though Earth's forces were no match for the Devourer fleet. President Morrison struggled to find a solution that would save humanity. Dr. Brooks made a breakthrough while studying the ancient texts provided by Dr. Kethmos. The records mentioned something called harmonic resonance that could disrupt the Devourer's coordination systems. The machines operated as a collective intelligence connected by quantum communication networks. If those networks could be severed, the individual units would become vulnerable. The discovery offered hope, but creating a harmonic disruptor would require resources and technology that Earth did not possess. The project would need cooperation from all the galaxy's surviving civilizations. It would also require someone to unite the fractured alien species under a single command structure. Reports arrived from the outer colonies about strange mechanical objects appearing in their star systems. The devices were not attacking but seemed to be studying human settlements and military installations. Earth's long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures moving through space toward the inner systems. The Devourer main fleet was coming. Intelligence estimates suggested that the mechanical armada would reach Earth's solar system within 6 months. The machines had finished consuming the alien border worlds and were ready to harvest the galaxy's core regions. Humanity was running out of time. Governor Alex Thompson sent desperate messages from Proxima Centauri, Earth's nearest colony. Mechanical scouts had appeared in the system and were moving toward the planet. The 50,000 colonists had no military defenses beyond mining equipment and construction robots. They would not be able to resist when the harvesters arrived. The attack on Proxima Centauri began at dawn local time. Governor Alex Thompson watched from his command center as mechanical shapes appeared in the sky above New Geneva, the colony's main city. The devourer harvesters descended like metallic vultures, their energy beams carving precise patterns through the settlement structures. Thompson had served in Earth's military before becoming a colonial administrator. He organized the colonists into defensive groups using mining lasers and construction mechs as weapons. The civilians fought bravely, but their improvised arsenal was useless against machines designed to consume entire worlds. The colonists sent desperate transmissions to Earth while the harvesting began. Live video feeds showed the mechanical invaders systematically stripping away the planet's surface. Buildings vanished into energy streams that fed the devourer processing ships. The ground itself was being consumed layer by layer. Children cried in underground shelters while their parents tried to hold defensive positions. Families huddled together as the mechanical sounds grew closer. Some colonists managed to reach escape pods, but most were trapped as the harvesters worked their way through the settlement. The planet that had been home to 50,000 people was being erased from existence. Thompson made his final transmission 18 hours after the attack began. His voice was calm, despite the chaos around him. He reported that the harvesters had reached the command center and that resistance was ending. The signal cut to static as Proxima Centauri's last human settlement fell silent forever. The images of the colony's destruction reached Earth within hours. News networks broadcast the footage across the planet as humanity watched their first world die. The mechanical efficiency of the attack horrified viewers more than any alien weapon ever had. The devourers showed no anger or hatred. They simply took what they needed and moved on. Mass protests erupted in every major city on Earth. Maria Rodriguez led demonstrations outside the Global Assembly building demanding immediate military action. Former military officer Peter Scott organized veterans groups calling for war against the mechanical threat. The protesters chanted that neutrality was no longer possible. President Morrison faced the hardest decision in human history. The loss of Proxima Centauri proved that the devourers would not spare human worlds. Earth's policy of neutrality had failed to protect even the smallest colony. The mechanical threat was different from the alien wars that humanity had avoided for centuries. Emergency. Sessions of the Global Assembly ran for days as representatives debated humanity's response. Intelligence reports from Agent Jennifer Clark showed devourer fleets moving toward other human colonies. Diplomatic envoy Commander Paul Evans brought urgent messages from surviving alien leaders begging for human assistance. The vote was closer than anyone expected. Many representatives still feared that joining the war would bring destruction to Earth itself. Others argued that the planet was already doomed unless humanity took action. The final tally showed a narrow majority in favor of military intervention. Morrison announced Earth's entry into the Galactic War during a televised address to the planet. She explained that humanity could no longer stand aside while mechanical invaders consumed entire civilizations. Earth would use its military forces to defend not just human worlds but all organic life in the galaxy. Admiral Carter received command of humanity's first war fleet in 2 centuries. The ships were research vessels and cargo haulers hastily converted for combat. Dr. Brooks and her team worked around the clock to install new weapons based on their study of devourer technology. The quantum disruptors could theoretically damage the machine's adaptive hull plating. Captain Sullivan volunteered to lead a strike force of converted civilian ships. His crew had seen the mechanical threat firsthand and understood what they were fighting. Engineer Tony Martinez modified the Discovery's engines for combat maneuvers. Dr. Brooks designed new sensor systems that could track Devourer movements through hyperspace. Marine Colonel Linda Wright prepared ground forces for planetary defense operations. Her soldiers trained with weapons designed to fight mechanical enemies rather than organic opponents. The tactics were completely different from traditional warfare. The machines felt no pain and showed no fear. They could only be stopped by destroying their physical systems. Earth's first major military action was a rescue mission to the Valdori homeworld. Long-range sensors showed Devourer harvesters beginning their attack on the reptilian planet. Millions of civilians were trapped on the surface while mechanical ships descended from orbit. The human fleet arrived just as the harvesting operations began. The Battle of Valdor Prime lasted 12 hours and changed the course of the war. Human ships used hit-and-run tactics that the Devourers had never encountered. Instead of engaging in direct combat, the Earth fleet targeted the harvesters, supply lines, and communication systems. Captain Sullivan's converted research ships proved faster and more maneuverable than the mechanical vessels. Dr. Brooks's quantum disruptors worked better than expected. The weapons created resonance patterns that interfered with the Devourers. Self-repair systems. Damaged machines could not heal themselves and became vulnerable to conventional weapons. For the first time since the mechanical invasion began, organic forces inflicted serious casualties on the Devourer fleet. The rescue operation saved nearly 1 million Valdori civilians from the harvesting beams. Evacuation ships carried reptilian families to safety while human fighters held off the mechanical attackers. The successful mission sent shock waves throughout the galaxy. Someone had finally proven that the Devourers could be defeated. News of the human victory spread faster than light through quantum communication networks. Alien leaders who had given up hope suddenly saw new possibilities. The Zephyrians sent messages praising human tactical skills. The Kryn offered to share their most advanced technology. Even the profit-focused Valdori pledged their remaining resources to the fight. Reformed Zephyrian Commander Zixhai contacted President Morrison directly. The insect warrior had lost his entire hive in a Devourer attack, but survived to lead a small group of refugees. He offered to serve under human command if it meant striking back at the mechanical invaders. His message was repeated by leaders. From dozens of species, Admiral Tissaka sent similar communications from her damaged flagship. The Kryn commander had watched her ocean homeworld being consumed, but escaped with a few thousand survivors. She promised to provide the human fleet with advanced shield technology and heavy weapons if they would accept alien volunteers in their crews. The political situation in the galaxy was changing rapidly. Species that had been killing each other for decades suddenly faced a common enemy that threatened all organic life. The humans had proven that the Devourers could be fought and beaten. Now the survivors needed to unite under a single command before it was too late. Earth's victory at Valdor Prime changed everything in the galaxy. For the first time since the Devourer invasion began, organic forces had won a major battle against the mechanical threat. The success proved that the machines could be defeated if the surviving species worked together. President Morrison faced a choice that would determine the fate of all life in the galaxy. General Davis accepted the position of Supreme Allied Commander with mixed feelings. He had spent his career preparing for the defense of Earth, not leading alien armies. His first challenge was bringing together species that had been enemies for generations. Zephyrian warriors still hated Kryn soldiers for past atrocities. The Valdori had betrayed both sides so many times that nobody trusted them. Human diplomats worked around the clock to resolve ancient conflicts. Ambassador Carol Turner established joint training facilities where former enemies learned to fight, side by side. She convinced Zephyrian Commander Zixhai to work with Kryn Admiral Thisaka by showing them footage of destroyed worlds. The mechanical threat made their old grievances seem unimportant. The first integrated unit was a disaster. Zephyrian fighters attacked Kryn positions during a training exercise, believing they were being ambushed. Kryn heavy troops responded by flooding an insect barracks with toxic water. Only human medics prevented the incident from becoming a massacre. It took weeks of careful work to rebuild trust between the species. Dr. Parker's research team grew to include alien scientists from across the galaxy. Dr. Kethmos shared Valdori knowledge of ancient civilizations, while Kryn biochemist Dr. Fluxta provided data on mechanical parasites. The mixed team made discoveries that no single species could have achieved alone. The breakthrough came when they combined human quantum theory with Zephyrian hive mind research and Kryn neural network studies. The Devourers operated through quantum entanglement connections that linked every machine in their fleet. These connections allowed instant communication across vast distances, but also created a critical vulnerability. Dr. Brooks led the team developing a harmonic disruptor weapon. The device would generate precisely tuned frequencies that interfered with quantum entanglement patterns. If successful, it would sever the connections between Devourer units and leave them operating independently. Individual machines would become much easier targets for conventional weapons. Building the disruptor required materials and technology from all the surviving civilizations. Zephyrian quantum crystals provided the power source, while Kryn processors handled the complex calculations. Valdori mining equipment was modified to create the harmonic resonators. Human engineering skills brought all the components together into a working weapon. Testing the disruptor had to be done in secret. If the Devourers detected the weapon before it was ready, they would adapt their systems to resist it. A small fleet of volunteer ships traveled to an abandoned star system, where mechanical scouts were known to operate. The test would either prove the weapon worked or reveal its location to the enemy. Captain Sullivan commanded the test mission from his converted research ship. The Discovery had been upgraded with the most advanced weapons and shields available. His crew included Dr. Brooks to operate the disruptor and representatives from each allied species. The mixed crew worked together despite their different biologies and cultures. The target was a single Devourer scout that had been mapping empty star systems for future harvesting. The mechanical ship was smaller than the main harvesters, but still dangerous enough to destroy Sullivan's entire fleet if the weapon failed. Everything depended on the harmonic disruptor working as designed. Dr. Brooks activated the weapon when the scout ship was within range. Energy patterns, invisible to normal sensors, reached out toward the mechanical vessel. For a moment, nothing happened, and Sullivan feared the device had failed. Then the Devourer ship began behaving strangely. Its perfect movements became erratic and uncoordinated. The scout ship started firing at empty space and changing course randomly. Its self-repair systems activated and deactivated without reason. The quantum connections that linked it to the greater Devourer network had been severed. The machine was now operating alone, with only its basic programming to guide it. Allied ships moved in for the kill using conventional weapons. The isolated Devourer unit fought back, but without coordination from the collective intelligence, its responses were predictable. Zephyrian fighters used swarming tactics while Kryn heavy cruisers provided long-range fire support. The scout ship was destroyed within minutes. News of the successful test spread quickly through the Allied fleet. The harmonic disruptor could work against larger Devourer forces, but only if it could be deployed without being detected. The enemy would certainly adapt their systems once they understood the threat. The Allies would have one chance to use their new weapon effectively. Intelligence reports showed the main Devourer fleet gathering at the galactic core. The mechanical armada contained thousands of harvester ships and millions of smaller units. They were preparing for a final assault that would consume the remaining inhabited systems. The Allies had to strike first before the enemy could complete their preparations. General Davis planned the largest military operation in galactic history. Ships from dozens of species would attack the Devourer stronghold in a coordinated assault. The harmonic disruptor would be deployed at the critical moment to disrupt the enemy's command structure. Success would save the galaxy, while failure would doom all organic life. The Allied fleet assembled in secret at a staging area near the Galactic Rim. Human ships served as the backbone of the force, while alien vessels provided specialized capabilities. Zephyrian fighters would clear a path through the outer defenses. Kryn heavy ships would engage the main battle groups. Valdori mining ships converted to carriers would deploy the disruptor weapon. Admiral Carter took command of the human contingent, while General Davis coordinated the overall strategy. Captain Sullivan led the Special Operations Group that would protect Dr. Brooks and her disruptor team. The success of the mission depended on getting the weapon close enough to the Devourer command ships to affect their quantum networks. The final battle for the galaxy was about to begin. Every surviving ship and soldier would take part in the assault. If they succeeded, organic life would continue to flourish among the stars. If they failed, the Devourers would consume everything and spread to other galaxies. The fate of trillions of beings rested on this single desperate attack. The Allied fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the galactic core in perfect formation. Thousands of ships from dozens of species spread across space in the largest military force ever assembled. General Davis watched from his command ship as the Devourer stronghold appeared on the tactical displays. The mechanical armada was even larger than intelligence reports had suggested. Massive harvester ships the size of space stations floated in organized patterns around a central command structure. Millions of smaller units moved between them like metallic insects tending their hive. The Devourers had been building their fleet for months, using materials from consumed worlds. They were ready to begin the final phase of their galactic harvest. Admiral Carter commanded the human battle group from her flagship, while Captain Sullivan led the Special Operations team carrying Dr. Brooks and the harmonic disruptor. The weapon had been divided into multiple components and distributed among several ships to prevent the Devourers from targeting it directly. Everything depended on assembling the device at the critical moment. The battle began when Zephyrian fighters attacked the outer defenses. Commander Zixhai led his surviving warriors in a desperate charge against mechanical patrol ships. The insect pilots used their natural swarming instincts to overwhelm individual targets. Their ships were fragile compared to Devourer units, but their tactics were unpredictable. Kryn heavy cruisers followed the fighter assault with long-range bombardment. Admiral Thisica coordinated her vessels to provide covering fire, while the Zephyrians penetrated the defensive perimeter. The aquatic species had learned to work with their former enemies despite centuries of hatred. The mechanical threat had united them against a common foe. Valdori mining ships converted to carriers launched waves of automated fighters. Dr. Kethmos had programmed the drones using ancient tactical data recovered from prehistoric ruins. The mechanical pilots confused the Devourers because they used organic strategies loaded into artificial systems. The enemy had trouble adapting to this hybrid approach. Human ships moved through the chaos with careful precision. Earth's navy was smaller than the alien forces, but their crews were better trained in combined operations. They provided coordination and communication links between the different species. Ambassador Turner worked from the command ship to resolve conflicts between Allied units. The Devourers responded to the attack with mechanical efficiency. Their ships moved in perfect coordination as the collective intelligence analyzed the Allied tactics. Energy beams reached across space to destroy attacking fighters, while harvester ships began converting debris into new weapons. The machines were adapting even as the battle raged. Sullivan's team fought their way toward the central command structure where the harmonic disruptor would be most effective. The Discovery led a mixed squadron of ships carrying components of the weapon. Dr. Brooks worked frantically to prepare the device while enemy fire exploded around them. They had to reach the target before the Devourers adapted to their presence. Zephyrian commander Zixhai died when his fighter was caught in a crossfire between two harvester ships. His sacrifice allowed the remaining insect warriors to clear a path for the human special operations team. The Zephyrians fought with desperate courage, knowing that failure meant the extinction of all organic life. Kryn Admiral Thesica's flagship took critical damage from a Devourer energy cannon. The aquatic commander transferred her crew to escape pods while her ship made a ramming attack on a mechanical harvester. The collision destroyed both vessels and opened a gap in the enemy formation. Dr. Kethmos coordinated the Valdori mining ships in a complex maneuver that surrounded a group of Devourer units. The reptilian scientist had studied mechanical behavior, patterns, and predicted their responses. Her tactics worked perfectly until the enemy adapted and began targeting the carrier ships directly. The battle reached its climax when Sullivan's squadron finally reached the central command area. The harmonic disruptor components were assembled in record time, while Allied ships provided desperate protection. Dr. Brooks activated the weapon as Devourer reinforcements closed in from all directions, energy patterns invisible to organic sensors, reached out toward the mechanical command ships. The harmonic frequencies interfered with quantum entanglement networks that connected every Devourer unit. For a critical moment, the collective intelligence controlling the fleet was disrupted. Individual Devourer ships began acting independently without coordination from the central command. Their perfect formations broke apart as units started following conflicting orders. Some machines attacked their own allies while others simply stopped functioning. The mechanical army that had seemed invincible was suddenly vulnerable. Allied forces pressed their advantage immediately. Human ships targeted the largest harvesters, while alien fighters swarmed the confused mechanical units. The Devourers tried to adapt, but their collective intelligence was still disrupted by the harmonic weapon. They could not coordinate an effective response. General Davis ordered all ships to focus fire on the central command structure. The destruction of the main control unit would prevent the Devourers from restoring their network connections. Hundreds of Allied vessels concentrated their weapons on the massive mechanical fortress at the heart of the enemy fleet. The command structure exploded in a brilliant flash that could be seen across the star system. Secondary explosions rippled through the Devourer fleet as individual units lost contact with their controlling intelligence. Thousands of mechanical ships went dark while others began fighting each other in confusion. Dr. Brooks modified the harmonic disruptor to maintain its effect over a wider area. The weapon continued broadcasting interference patterns that prevented the remaining Devourers from re-establishing their network. Without collective intelligence to guide them, the individual machines became easy targets for conventional weapons. The battle continued for 6 more hours as Allied forces hunted down the scattered mechanical units. Some Devourer ships tried to escape but were pursued and destroyed by vengeful alien crews. The machines had shown no mercy during their harvest of organic worlds and received none in return. When the fighting finally ended, the galactic core was filled with drifting wreckage. The Devourer fleet that had threatened all life in the galaxy was destroyed. A few isolated units might have escaped to distant star systems, but the main threat was eliminated. The mechanical invasion was over. General Davis broadcast the news of victory to every surviving world in the galaxy. Organic life had triumphed over the ancient mechanical threat through cooperation and sacrifice. The different species had learned to work together despite their past conflicts. The galaxy would never be the same. The victory over the Devourers left the galaxy in ruins, but also offered hope for the future. Entire star systems had been consumed during the mechanical invasion. Billions of beings were dead, and countless worlds were reduced to empty space. The surviving species faced the enormous task of rebuilding their civilizations from the scattered remnants. President Morrison called for a galactic conference to establish a new government structure. The old system of independent powers fighting each other had failed when faced with an existential threat. The alliance forged during the war needed to become something permanent. Earth offered to host the conference and provide neutral ground for negotiations. Representatives from every surviving species traveled to the Sol system for the historic meeting. Zephyrian General Caxra arrived with the scattered survivors of her hive fleets. Kryn Admiral Morga brought refugees from dozens of ocean worlds. Valdori Chancellor Rixven represented the few mining colonies that had escaped destruction. Smaller species sent delegates to ensure their voices would be heard. The negotiations were difficult and sometimes hostile. Centuries of warfare had created deep mistrust between the species. The Zephyrians demanded compensation for worlds destroyed by Kryn weapons before the Devourer invasion. The Kryn accused Valdori merchants of selling defective equipment that had cost them critical battles. Old grievances threatened to destroy the fragile alliance. Ambassador Turner worked tirelessly to find compromises that all sides could accept. She reminded the delegates that their old conflicts had made them vulnerable to the mechanical threat. The galaxy needed unity to prevent future disasters. Human diplomats served as mediators between species that refused to negotiate directly with each other. Dr. Brooks presented her research on the Devourer technology that had been recovered from battle sites. The mechanical units contained advanced materials and manufacturing techniques that could help rebuild destroyed worlds. However, studying the alien machines required cooperation between scientists from different species. No single civilization had the knowledge to unlock all the secrets. The breakthrough came when Dr. Kethmos suggested creating a joint research council. Valdori mining experts could extract useful materials from Devourer wrecks, while Kryn engineers designed new manufacturing systems. Zephyrian quantum specialists would study the communication networks, and human scientists would coordinate the overall project. Working together, they could rebuild faster than any species working alone. General Davis proposed a unified defense force to protect the galaxy from future threats. The Devourer invasion had shown that isolated planetary defenses were useless against advanced enemies. A combined fleet with ships from all species would be stronger than separate navies fighting independently. Earth offered to contribute its most advanced vessels to the joint force. The debates continued for months as representatives argued over details of the new government structure. Some species wanted equal representation, while others demanded influence based on population or resources. The humans suggested a federal system where each species maintained local autonomy while contributing to common defense and exploration programs. Captain Sullivan led the first joint exploration mission to map the damage caused by the Devourer invasion. His crew included scientists and engineers from every allied species working together to survey destroyed star systems. They found that some worlds could be restored using terraforming technology, while others were completely beyond recovery. The mixed crew of the Discovery proved that cooperation between species was possible. Dr. Brooks worked with Kryn engineer Fluxta to design new sensor systems. Zephyrian pilot Vexna learned human navigation techniques, while human Marine Lisa Grant trained with Valdori combat specialists. The different species brought unique skills that made the ship more effective. Their surveys revealed the true scope of the destruction. The Devourers had consumed over 300 star systems and killed more than 50 billion organic beings. Entire species had been wiped out when their homeworlds were harvested. The mechanical invasion had been worse than any natural disaster in galactic history. However, the surveys also showed that life was returning to some of the damaged systems. Planets that had been partially harvested were developing new ecosystems. Automated terraforming systems left behind by ancient civilizations were slowly healing the scars. The galaxy had survived worse catastrophes in the distant past and would recover again. President Morrison was elected as the first leader of the United Galactic Alliance after a close vote. The human candidate had the advantage of representing a neutral species that had not participated in the pre-war conflicts. She promised to focus on reconstruction and peaceful cooperation rather than military expansion. The new government established its headquarters on Luna, Earth's moon. The location was chosen to symbolize that no single world would dominate the alliance. The lunar facilities were expanded to house representatives from every member species. Special environmental systems were installed to accommodate beings with different atmospheric and gravity requirements. Admiral Carter was appointed as the first commander of the Allied Defense Force. Her victory over the Devourers had earned respect from every species in the galaxy. The new fleet combined the best ships and technologies from all member civilizations. Human vessels provided coordination and communication, while alien ships contributed specialized weapons and defenses. The reconstruction efforts began with the most heavily damaged systems. Teams of engineers from different species worked together to rebuild orbital stations and planetary infrastructure. Zephyrian construction techniques were combined with Kryn manufacturing technology and Valdori mining equipment. Human project management skills helped coordinate the massive undertakings. Dr. Parker established the Galactic Research Institute to study the recovered Devourer technology. Scientists from every species contributed their expertise to unlock the secrets of the mechanical invaders. The Institute's first major discovery was a new type of energy source that could power terraforming equipment for centuries. Trade relationships were rebuilt on a foundation of mutual cooperation rather than exploitation. The Valdori mining guilds agreed to fair pricing structures while the Kryn shared their advanced manufacturing techniques. Zephyrian quantum crystals became available to all Alliance members for research purposes. Earth provided agricultural products and finished goods to help feed the refugee populations. The Alliance faced its first major test when a group of Zephyrian separatists tried to restart the old wars. They attacked a Kryn research station claiming that the aquatic species was stealing insect technology. The Allied Defense Force responded immediately with ships from all member species working together to stop the violence. The separatist leaders were captured and brought before an Alliance tribunal for trial. The mixed jury of different species found them guilty of violating the peace accords. The punishment was exile to an uninhabited world where they could not threaten the new cooperation. The incident proved that the Alliance was strong enough to prevent a return to the old conflicts. 5 years after the defeat of the Devourers, the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. The United Galactic Alliance grew stronger each year as former enemies learned to work together. New worlds were being terraformed using technology recovered from the mechanical invaders. Trade flowed freely between star systems that had once been battlefields. Captain Sullivan stood on the bridge of the UNS Discovery, watching a sunrise over New Harmony, a planet being rebuilt through joint efforts of all Alliance species. His crew had grown to include permanent members from every major civilization. Dr. Brooks served as his science officer, while Kryn engineer Fluxta maintained their advanced propulsion systems. Zephyrian pilot Vexna handled navigation through the most dangerous regions of space. The Discovery's current mission was typical of the new era. They were exploring a star system that had been damaged during the Devourer invasion to see if any worlds could be restored. Early surveys showed promising signs of life returning to planets that had been partially harvested. The crew would spend months studying the recovery process and documenting new species that were evolving in the changed environments. President Morrison had just been re-elected for her second term as Alliance leader. Her administration focused on expanding cooperation between species and preventing conflicts before they could escalate. The lunar headquarters had grown into a small city housing thousands of diplomats, scientists, and military officers from across the galaxy. Earth had become the symbolic heart of the new civilization, while maintaining its role as a neutral mediator. Human colonies were being established throughout the galaxy, but always in partnership with alien species. The old dream of human expansion had been replaced by a vision of shared growth and mutual prosperity. Admiral Carter commanded the Allied Defense Force from her flagship, a massive vessel that combined the best technologies from every member species. The fleet patrolled the galaxy's borders, watching for signs of new threats. Intelligence reports suggested that other mechanical civilizations might exist in distant galaxies, but none had been detected approaching local space. Dr. Brooks had become the director of the Galactic Research Institute after Dr. Parker's retirement. Her teams had made breakthrough discoveries about Devourer technology that were revolutionizing manufacturing and energy production. The Institute's laboratories housed scientists from dozens of species working on projects that would have been impossible for any single civilization. The most important discovery was a new form of faster-than-light communication that used quantum entanglement principles learned from studying Devourer networks. The technology allowed instant communication across vast distances without the delays that had made coordination difficult during the war. Alliance fleets could now respond to threats anywhere in the galaxy within hours. Reconstruction efforts had restored most of the damaged star systems to habitability. Zephyrian hive worlds were rebuilt with improved defenses and environmental controls. Kryn ocean planets were restocked with new species, adapted to the changed conditions. Valdori mining operations expanded into asteroid belts that had once been inhabited worlds. The psychological scars of the war were healing more slowly than the physical damage. Many survivors still had nightmares about the mechanical harvesters. Support groups met on every Alliance world to help veterans and civilians deal with their traumatic memories. Human therapists worked with alien counselors to develop treatments that were effective across different species. Cultural exchange had accelerated as the different species learned more about each other. Human music was popular on Zephyrian hive worlds, while alien art forms gained appreciation on Earth. Mixed schools taught children from different species to work together from an early age. The generation growing up after the war saw cooperation as natural rather than exceptional. The Galactic Defense Academy had become the most prestigious institution in known space. Young beings from every Alliance world competed for admission to the Academy, where they learned to serve in mixed crews protecting their shared civilization. The Academy's motto was Unity Through Diversity, and its graduates were posted throughout the galaxy. Bobby Chen graduated at the top of his class from the Academy's engineering program. The young human had grown up hearing stories about his grandfather's service during the Devourer War. His class included Zephyrian warriors, Kryn technicians, and Valdori pilots who would serve together on Alliance vessels exploring the unknown regions beyond the galactic rim. Chen's first assignment was to the exploration ship UNS Horizon under Captain Martinez, the former engineer from Sullivan's crew. The ship's mission was to investigate strange signals coming from the Andromeda Galaxy. Long-range sensors had detected artificial transmissions that might indicate another advanced civilization. The signals were peaceful in nature and seemed to be attempts at communication rather than threats. Alliance scientists had spent years trying to decode the messages using translation algorithms developed from studying Devourer data. The breakthrough came when they realized the signals were mathematical equations expressing universal constants. A response was sent toward Andromeda using the Alliance's most powerful transmitters. The message included information about the defeat of the Devourers and an invitation for peaceful contact. It would take 2 million years for the signal to reach its destination, but the gesture represented hope for an even larger community of civilizations. Meanwhile, the search for other Devourer remnants continued throughout the galaxy. Small groups of mechanical units had been discovered in remote star systems where they remained dormant. Alliance teams carefully studied these remnants to understand how the machines had operated and to ensure they could never reactivate. The remnants provided valuable insights into the Devourer's origins. They had been created by an organic civilization that had tried to achieve immortality by transferring their consciousness into machines. The experiment had failed catastrophically when the artificial minds lost their connection to organic values and began consuming everything to fuel their expansion. This discovery led to new research into the nature of consciousness and the risks of artificial intelligence. Alliance scientists worked on safeguards to prevent any future AI development from following the same destructive path. The goal was to create artificial beings that could work alongside organics without threatening their existence. Trade guilds established routes connecting every Alliance world in an economic network that benefited all species equally. The Valdori had abandoned their exploitative practices and now operated as honest merchants. Kryn manufacturing centers produced goods for export throughout the galaxy. Zephyrian quantum crystals powered everything from starships to household appliances. Cultural festivals celebrated the diversity of Alliance civilization while reinforcing shared values of cooperation and mutual respect. The annual Unity Day commemoration honored those who had died fighting the Devourers while celebrating the peace that their sacrifice had made possible. Children from every species learned about the war and the importance of working together. Earth's role as the Alliance's spiritual center was reflected in the pilgrimage routes that brought visitors from across the galaxy. They came to see the world where the decision to fight the Devourers had been made and where the Alliance had been born. The museums and monuments told the story of how unity had triumphed over division. As Captain Sullivan prepared for another exploration mission, he reflected on how much had changed since the dark days of the Devourer invasion. The galaxy was no longer a place of endless war between competing powers. It had become a community where different species worked together to build something greater than any could achieve alone. The future stretched ahead, filled with infinite possibilities for discovery and growth among the stars.